today we're going to talk about something, and I'm going to share a vulnerable story of my own with you guys. Honestly, a beautiful opportunity to see a pattern in myself that I have experienced, but I wasn't actually able to put a name on it or understand what exactly was happening. So part of this coaching that I do with you guys is it's the opportunity to see patterns in ourselves. And as a coach, that also helps me reflect and see patterns in myself. And honestly, you guys, each and every one of you come into my life, come into the community, it's an opportunity for all of us to grow. And so honestly, it's just a beautiful relationship that I'm so glad I've been able to connect with so many of you inside of this group. It's truly a gift. And I want to say thank you today for that. I was working with a woman, I was working with a client that decided to ditch diets for good after 15 years of dieting, her whole, just decades of her life, right? So she was a strong, really independent woman, and she cycled through diets. She would try this diet, she would lose weight, then she would regain it, she would find another diet, and so it was this pattern she cycled through. And with every failure that she had, the next diet would come, and then that would fail, and so it became this problem that she felt like she had to fix. With every failure becomes the belief that we are the problem, right? So in her final attempt to diet, she'd almost hit what I call diet rock bottom. She'd done a series of, Whole 30s, and the last one was Whole 30 combined with intermittent fasting, okay? That led her straight into binging because she was restricting so much. And then she found intuitive eating, which is wonderful that she found and heard about intuitive eating. So she read the book and she worked through the book and the principles, and she attempted to quit dieting, and she wanted to become an intuitive eater. So I love all of that. And by the time we met, she'd been trying to be an intuitive eater for, 6 months. And literally in her own words, in a coffee chat as we connected together, she said, intuitive eating doesn't work. And so she went back to dieting. She's like, this works for me. And so then we met. We spoke that day, and she made a commitment to work with me in what our one-on-one program is called Finding Food Freedom, where we actually take the steps together to find food freedom. And it's a framework, and it's a 5-step process. You can't just cherry pick bits and pieces and think it can come together. It takes time, it takes daily practices. So we started working together. And in our journey together, we were about to uncover why diets weren't working for her. And we were on a coaching call together, and she just wanted me to outline, she kept bringing up foods that were good versus foods that were bad. And I wouldn't really go there with her. She kept classifying things as healthy versus unhealthy. And I kept telling her that there weren't really any unhealthy foods. And she pushed back and she questioned. And that's okay, because that's part of this process too. But she was questioning, how I could believe this, and how could I stand to believe that there were foods that were healthy versus unhealthy. How could I say that donuts had a place in her life? I kept reassuring her that her body would guide her. Okay, your body will guide you to make the best decision for you. And what we work on together in this program is attunement, listening and learning to reconnect with our body and what it really is telling us. So I kept reassuring her that her body would help her make the best decision for her, but it just wasn't resonating on that call. And she wanted me to draw the line in the sand and tell her that these foods were not good and these foods were bad. Give her a list, So as a woman, it's part of the reason that we get into diet culture is because that we've been socialized from a very, very young age. We don't trust ourselves anymore, and we go seeking something outside of ourselves. And part of helping to uplift you, to empower you guys, is to help you reconnect to your body and its signals. So to do so, as a coach, what I'm trying to do here in this community with you guys to uplift you, it's my responsibility. It's my duty to help redirect you. For most women, though, the way there's something in the way of them being able to connect with their thoughts and their beliefs about themselves. So these thoughts and these beliefs, they're actually a lovely gift from diet culture. And that if we aren't perfect enough, we just keep trying to achieve that so that we're worthy. Does that make sense? So that we're worthy of what I see so much and hear from you guys is that so we're worthy of weight loss. And for most women, these thoughts and these beliefs are getting in the way. In the way of them finding their true worth. Because what I want you to do is step back for a minute and see diet culture for what it really and truly is. And it is perfectly normal also for us to seek someone else to tell us what to eat, because I think that's how we've been socialized, right, from a very young age. So I polled you guys. I've asked you tons of questions in this group, and I know this comes down to this idea of self-worth and valuing ourselves. So, surprise, surprise, diet culture comes in, especially during the holiday season, and definitely in January, right? They have a solution for us. They have a new diet. Everyone's doing it. They program us, and they tell us what to eat, and they tell us what foods are good, and they tell us what foods are bad. And our ability to stick to this diet, right, it helps override the brokenness that diet culture has told us that we have. And that's what I see. We've been kind of falsely and maliciously led by diet culture to believe that this is our worth as women. And it's not. That we as women are worthy depending on our body size or shape, or diet culture standards of worth, the diet culture standard of beauty. I do want to say that is 100% normal, because it's what we see all around us. It's what we're programmed to think, to believe. So I just want to ask a question, I guess, today is, can you guys see a common thread here? Because that's what we're working towards this week in the challenge inside the Food Confidence Club. We've been working on recognizing diet culture. So this is a big one for you guys. I wanted to kind of tie it all in. Last week, we really had daily challenges each day to try to understand, to recognize diet culture in and all around us. adherence to what's valued in society gives us worth. Shame is one of the most potent emotions there is when it comes to our body image and our self-worth. Shame motivates us, or the avoidance of shame. Like, we don't want to feel that way, so we try harder and harder and harder. And I see this so often with diets, and the frustration when you guys come to me is like, why isn't this working? What's the matter with me? What's wrong with me? I just can't get it right. That we can't meet these beauty standards, or these standards for like this idea of how much we should weigh, or how thin we should be, or even to be a certain health. Like, I'll see, well, doctors will tell you, you need to lose weight, you need to do this in order to achieve or obtain this level of health. That's another one that I see all the time. And what it does is we diet, and we diet harder. I've been there too. We diet harder, and it's almost this like web, or this tangle of like just complication, for lack of a better word. Yes, to shrink our body. So we're waiting for our body to shrink while we're doing this diet, doing all the things, trying to get it right. So what we're doing is we're actually, it gives us a little bit of external self-worth when we're doing these things. We're checking off the boxes. Like, we know that if we can just diet harder, just be healthier, do it the right way, try to be more perfect at it. Because I know I've been there. I know. And when we're in this pattern, I don't think we see it as self-worth. So it's only, I think, when you hear something, maybe like you're hearing today, or you're working with somebody, or you're, like in my situation, after years of working with people and seeing the same things come up over and over and over again, you can start to identify those things. And it's only when you hear something, or you work with them, that you can see it. This pattern of doing it right, dieting harder, dieting the right way, just to feel more worthy. So I'm going to share part of my story with you today. Enough about this. Let me give you an example of me, of what happened within myself. And I'm going to be vulnerable with you guys. I've shared my story with you before, but I want to share some things with you again today. So in my last few years of dieting, I was actually telling myself it wasn't about dieting. I would call it, and I even had it had its own hashtag, you guys. It was called the PD lifestyle. Hashtag PD lifestyle. I would post on social media something I was doing or eating, and it was all about the lifestyle. Does this sound familiar to any of you guys? I know now that I recognize diet culture. Diet culture uses this word a lot. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. It's about health. That's another one. And it almost turns me off now when I hear that. But I branded this, the PD lifestyle, when I was the pantry doctor. And here I was in smoothie land, drinking or making green smoothies, all the superfoods, never have anything with a label. If you can't pronounce it, it's not good to eat. You guys, I was chasing health. This is the thing that's vulnerable. What I realized, it made me feel a little bit more superior when I did those things, because I was like setting the example of this super complicated dietary lifestyle that was so hard to achieve. I did everything, the paleo, the Whole 30, the gluten-free, the dairy-free. Guys, I was restricting so many foods too. I sold reset ebooks that had a list of foods that you could only eat that week for 10 days, and foods that were off limits during this reset. And you guys, I was feeling superior. I mean, looking back, I was so rigid with myself during those years as the pantry doctor. This has an actual term, you guys. It's called healthism. If you've never heard of it, there's actually a name for that. And I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't aware that that's what I was doing, but my sense of worth was derived from my efforts toward optimal health. So it's happened to me too, you guys. That's why I want to share this with you, because I see this now in the story of my clients, and I see the change that happens. I am living proof of the change that happens. Yeah, so back to the story of her. I kind of got, weave my way through there, but that was a big line, I think, with her story, is although she wasn't able to be aware of it at the time, when she was like clearly wanting me to draw a line in the sand and tell her, I could have just handed her the reset. That's what she wanted, right? She was still so hardcore in diet mentality, even though she'd been trying for 6 months to be an intuitive eater. And, we started working together, and she said, this does not work. That this wasn't really about the food. You guys, food is just food. But she wasn't ready to see that yet. And that's why she got so defensive with me. And I get it, because she was defending her worth. It wasn't about the food, it was about her self-worth. And that's the key that I understood now through coaching her. It took me a while to get that piece of it, but her ability to adhere better than others to this healthy lifestyle or healthy eating, same as me, it was giving her a sense of self-worth. So she needed this list. She needed this list of do's and don'ts to help maintain her worth. And this was what she did to maintain her self-worth, how she felt about herself. So over time, her self-worth had become completely entangled with dieting, or really with her ability to do the diet the right way. But our desire to do our diet program, lifestyle, whatever it is, or whatever you want to call it, it makes us self-righteous eaters. And we're doing this not because we want to feel self-righteous. That's not what I'm saying. When I heard this term, I was like, but we want to protect a little bit of the self-worth that we have. And I just want to take a minute to just let that kind of sink in and talk about how diet culture is just tangling up our brain, our mind. That's why I call it diet brain when I'm talking about it. Our brain creates thoughts based on our beliefs. And these thoughts get communicated to the rest of our body. It's just how our neurosystem works. I get nerdy with you for a minute, but a wave of energy travels from our brain to our central nervous system, and it creates sensations in our body that are labeled emotions. Encounter a new diet, it seems like, it's something that is promising to help. It's promising to help us lose 30 pounds in 30 days. That's a biggie. Or, get the booty of your dreams in 30 days, a booty challenge, whatever it is. We can do these things while we wait to achieve thinness. For thinness to magically appear. This idea that we have that we're reaching, we're gonna reach that, and so we feel worthy in the meantime, while we're working to achieve that, while we're waiting to be thin, actually. But now what do we do? So many of them, and I was there too. We eat self-righteously, so we're eating to make us feel better. And when we feel better about ourselves, we feel that void that's there, left by the belief that we aren't worthy enough because we're not this beauty standard or this thin. And so we work harder to just have a little bit of worth, to feel good about what we're doing. And I think it's simple when we go back to the brain in terms of diet brain and thinking. When we eat the right way, we'll have thoughts like, you go girl, you did it. One more week to go, if you're on like a challenge of some sort, Or maybe it's like, we've all, I'll be honest, back when we can catch ourselves having judgmental thoughts like, oh, look at the way she's eating. If only she knew how bad that food was or whatever. Sometimes it's like being around all of your friends and trying to just be out socially. Have you guys ever had these thoughts where you're like, wow, look at them eating all the chips and guac. I'm able to resist that. This is why we do this, to feel better. So these thoughts create these short little bursts of energy in our brain that travel through our body, and they give us a feeling of self-worth. And that's all that it is. These thoughts and these emotions that we have is what make up our self-worth. All that self-worth is thoughts, it's opinions about ourselves. This is what makes up our self-worth. This is where it gets interesting. So you guys, you can right now, like literally right now, believe that you're worthy. And I know that so many of you have messaged me or you commented before in the past. It is available to you right now that you can literally repeat after me, like, I believe I'm worthy, because you are worthy. You guys, we were born worthy. Worth is a part of you. It's written in your DNA when you were created. Literally, you are worthy. Right now, unconditionally, we are worthy. You don't have to prove that to me. You don't have to prove that to anyone. Just know that right now, because I know you are, and I know we are. I choose to believe that in my thoughts every day. What does this belief and this thought create? It creates the feeling of worthiness. And when we feel worthy, we'll stop chasing our worth in food and the idea of body size, whatever that idea is in your head that you think, you need to be. So when we change our belief system, and we have to do this by changing the thoughts in our head, we can stop hustling for our self-worth. So, a couple of truth bombs. Number one, in the long term, diets really stink, but in the short term, they're easier. This work is a daily practice, but I can guarantee you in the long run, you are so much better off. So, up until my late 30s, you guys, I was convinced that I was unworthy, that I had to earn my worth in some way, and I had to work very hard And according to, these thoughts in my head and things that I had been programmed to believe, this is what I needed to do, because worth was earnable. And it wasn't just innate. I wasn't just automatically worthy. So I thought, you have to work at it. And why did I believe this? Because, again, it was something that almost like I was socially programmed to believe these thoughts that you have to earn your worth to be thin, or you have to work hard to be worthy. And I continued to operate really out of the old, outdated operating system in my brain until like my late 30s. Running these thoughts in my head up to 60,000 times a day. I now know that when we're telling ourselves these things, it's 60,000 thoughts a day we have in our head and in my brain. So over and over and over and over again did I hustle. And when I hear people or heard people at the time like claiming their worth without having to earn it, it was triggering to me. All the hard work that I was doing as the pantry doctor for health just to get a little bit of worth, right? I've also found it in research. So clear that self-esteem or low self-esteem, which is our self-worth, is a significant risk factor to developing an eating disorder. And body dissatisfaction is one of the strongest predictors of eating disorder symptoms. So right now, you can Google something and it's called orthorexia. If you've never heard of the word orthorexia, you will see that it is an eating disorder that comes from an unhealthy obsession with healthy things. So if you've never heard of that term, that's what that is, that's what that means. But if we go into just basic psychology research, this is more about what happens in your mind. It's not about the food. So if you go and look at these studies based on our self-worth, external factors, right? External factors are actually more harmful to our mental health. This is why I'm always talking about ditching diet mentality. And when you finally find that freedom, you've got so much more mental space. Let's rewind back to my story with my client. Now remember, we were at stage 1 in this program. She was not ready to, ditch the idea that there were not good and bad foods, that, she had to eat certain things to be healthy. So we're in stage 1 of my program. And the concept of good and bad food, this idea, she was determined to get me to admit that there were certain foods that were better than others. And she was adamant about that. So I just want to take a step back now that we've chatted over the last 45 minutes here. And can you see it now, why she might have been reacting this way to me? So she was literally in defense mode. Doing it because she was a bad person. She was doing it to protect herself. She was doing it to survive. This idea of letting go of good and bad foods was wrecking the little self-worth that she'd worked so hard to achieve and establish for herself as a professional dieter for 15 years. It meant that if I told her there were no good or bad foods, then I just took all that away from her. And so that also explains, too, why people that are fat phobic react so vividly to fat people that are happy, that are joyful, that are fulfilled in their body. It's a direct attack on their own sense of self-worth, which is based on the size of their body. So we learned, first of all, from this incident, from all of her eating patterns, that there was a reason that she attempted to try intuitive eating on her own and it didn't work. So here's another truth bomb for you today. On her own, See, if we're doing this on our own, right? On our own, you're able to negotiate your need for self-worth. You don't have to completely let go of the idea of good and bad food, because it can be really dangerous. It can seem really scary. It can cause a lot of anxiety. But through coaching and through time, because it's a daily practice, I can't say that enough. Through coaching and time, then she was able to see this. And she was able to realize that what she really needed to work on was this innate sense of self-worth inside. And so this work, I can't say this more than enough. I can say this so many times. It's not about the food. It's truly not about the food. We have to change our belief system. And this, in turn, we have to work on our self-worth. And through her internal work that she did, through her hard drive, she changed her thoughts. And she was able to neutralize those thoughts around food, about food. But it helped her tremendously with body acceptance and with her body image. So she was able to reconnect to that. And I call that this is truly connecting to your body. If there's any way to explain it, she was able to get back to truly connecting to her body, her eating cues, her ability to make peace with all foods, with all food groups. And this is exactly what we do now inside of the Food Confidence Club. So I help the community find and connect to their innate worth, those signals, those body signals that we've kind of fallen away from. So how do we do this? In the same way, we do it in the same way we lost our connection, by changing our thoughts. It all happens up here. It's not about the food, it's about what happens in your mind. So we were all born intuitive eaters. You can see this with little toddlers. You can watch the little toddlers. They, first of all, and you can see it with food, but they know they're worthy. We all had it. We just lost it along the way somewhere. Diet culture came in our lives and programmed our brain and our thoughts to believe the opposite. And the process that I use with clients and with you guys inside the Food Confidence Club is called self-coaching. That's what we've been doing since November 1st, when we started our daily challenges inside there. We're doing self-coaching. And this is why I address mindset in track 1, the very first module inside the Food Confidence Club. Because I want you to jumpstart your mindset. There's a 5-day program that you get bundled in that helps you readjust your mindset. It's called the Ditching Diets Together Blueprint. It's the perfect place to start. So it's not about your food, it's not about your body. It's starting within yourself, and it's what happens in your mind. This is the perfect place. Okay, so you can upgrade your thinking, so you can upgrade your beliefs, and what you will believe after you've worked on this through a period of time, through reprogramming and rewiring your brain, is that you are worthy. That's what it gets back down to. Is this sets us up for intuitive eating, for the nutrition, for applying those principles. And see, those can't just be applied until you address what's going on up here. So this is why we address mindset first. Learning to manage your mind and what's going on up here in diet brain, if you've been dieting for years. This is the work that we do together inside. Then we work on body image and intuitive eating, and it makes it so much easier, you guys. I can't tell you how much easier. It's a life-changing experience. I can tell you that because I've come to the other side. So if you're sitting there wondering like what happens on the other side of food freedom, first of all, I'm living proof. You get connected to your worth. You neutralize food. It doesn't, honestly, it doesn't become a thing anymore. So if like food is something that's on your brain 75, 80, 90% of the time, it becomes about 10% of the time on the other side of food freedom. And you learn to neutralize your body, which is huge. Yes, your body is your vehicle. It's how you experience life. And I can't say it any other way than I don't want you to experience life obsessing about food. That is my number one mission in this group. Maybe it's not about the pizza, or maybe it's not about the sweet potato or the cauliflower rice or the brownies or the cookies or the zucchini filled brownies. Maybe it's not about any of that. I would love to work with you guys. Join the Food Confidence Club. I'll just invite you to join the Food Confidence Club. I want to help you change your beliefs, change that sense of self-worth, your self-esteem, find better body image. I would love to coach you on this. So if you are interested, say me below and I'll get you the link to set up a free coffee chat so we can connect. And if you want to join us inside the Food Confidence Club, there is no better time than right now, because if you're feeling those feelings of stress and anxiety around food, it doesn't get easier throughout the holidays. You want support and you want accountability. You want daily little prompts from me inside that app, then join us inside. Okay, you guys. Thank you. I'm so glad that you were here and you watched today, and glad to see you guys that came on. Just have a good rest of the day. We almost went an hour today. Wow, I was really passionate about this coffee chat, for sure. All right, you guys, I'll leave it with this one thing. You are worthy.